was walking through Mafia 3 and I noticed something small but weird. This power line just ends. Not at a substation, not at a transformer, it just stops. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Then I saw it again and again and again throughout the game. Is this something that could happen in real life, let alone in New Orleans in 1968? Or is this just a lazy dev mistake? You'll find out soon. Mafia 3 is set in New Bordeaux, a fictional version of 1968 New Orleans, a city that's absolutely riddled with overhead power lines. So I decided to do something stupid. I followed them to figure out if they actually make sense. So I put on my Mafia suit and took a stroll outside to investigate New Bordeaux's power lines. I decided to start at this one utility pole that branches in 4 directions in River Row. I crossed the street to follow this overhead power line down the street, and there's something else that's off here as this line connects to this building, but we'll come back to this later. So I followed this line until it reached this utility pole that branches out to the other side of the street. You'll see it connects to this building that's all done and good, but if you follow it a tad bit more, you'll notice something interesting. It goes into this compound, then goes back down the street we came, over this fence, and look at this. It just ends. Nothing else connects to it. And this just becomes a dead end in all its glory. In real life, this wouldn't happen. Electrical grids don't just come to a stop. But could there be an explanation for this? Actually, yes, there might be. Turns out utility poles can just end, and in real life, these are called dead-end poles. And this happens when a set of power lines reach the end of their service area, or they have to go over an obstacle or pivot to another direction. However, when this is done, there is usually visible infrastructure to support this, and the utility pole wouldn't just look like a normal one. Now, let's go back to Mafia 3. Notice how there's no pivot to this dead-end utility pole, and we can reliably say this is the end of the service area when there are more buildings down that line. So what's going on then? To really sanity check this, I decided to find other instances of this in the game. So yes, I followed more power lines, and lo and behold, another utility pole that just ends. This one just connects to this tiny building beside this warehouse, and that's it. And as you can see, it sure doesn't look like a dead-end utility pole, nor can we justify it contextually. And then I followed more power lines, and again, this one just ends, even though another utility pole begins out of nowhere. So as you see, they could have just connected these, but they didn't. And now, back to where I started, I followed another direction to see if it would be the same, and yet another utility pole that just simply ends. But this one is sort of justified because there's water in its path that could be an obstacle. As you can see, below this bridge, there's some water. Then I decided to go into the bayou away from the urban areas to see if it would still apply. So I went there and followed even more power lines. And look at this beautiful structure. This overhead pole, as you can see, is much taller than the one next to it. And this is what's commonly used to carry power lines over a natural obstacle such as water. This is what we'll expect to see if power lines were meant to pivot or traverse over something. But we didn't see this back at that bridge where we saw that one dead-end pole. But anyway, I decided to continue following the lines down this path. Yep. And then again, another dead-end pole, this time just connecting to a small building. And interestingly, there's just a pylon here connecting to nothing. Not sure what's that about, but yeah. But I researched, and this does happen in real life, most likely for planned future connection. Now I found many more examples of this, particularly in Point Verdun, but I reckon this was enough to show a consistent pattern. Now remember earlier in the video when I said there was something weird about how that one power line was connecting to that one building? Let's go back there. Okay, now look at this. So the power line branches off from its main path and connects to this building through some bushings or something of the sort. That's correct, that's great. But then look where the power line goes after that. It immediately connects to another utility pole. Now that is strange and absolutely does not happen in real life, unless the building is a substation, which this is clearly not, as it will be gated and have better security. More on substations later, by the way. The previous observation I mentioned could be chalked up to New Orleans' evolving electrical grid in the 1960s. The developers may not have done it intentionally, but dead-end poles in 1968 New Orleans could have been quite common as they were still trying to expand and connect the power grid. But this, on the other hand, even contextually, it doesn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense back then, and it doesn't make sense today. And like the previous observation, I looked around for more examples of this, and I found this one again, where the power line connects to this building. Again, correct. Then it wraps around the building, then connects to another building, then connects to another singular utility pole. And all this is just weird. This next one, it's just a nitpick, but if you look here, these power lines pass through these trees. And again, that's just not something that happens in real life. Even in areas with trees, there's usually a through path for power lines to pass by. This could be more expected in the bayous, where you'd expect infrastructure to be poorly maintained because it's a rural area. And if you do boot up your copy of Mafia 3 and roam around the bayou, you'll actually see the devs modeled that, but you wouldn't see this in an urbanized area like River Row. And a quick little bonus for you, there's actually a substation in the game. Here it is. As you can see, I tried going inside, but just like in real life, I couldn't. And even better, the substation actually connects to a utility pole. Look at that, right there. It's amazing. Now, you probably won't expect me to say this, but all this is actually great game design. Any good dev will tell you the goal is not to make a realistic city or environment, it's to make a believable one. And Mafia 3 certainly sells itself as a rendition of 1968 Orleans. The game is beautiful at times, and if you turn on Lincoln's driving ability while passing by shopping districts, it adds a warmth and saturation that genuinely looks like Pinterest pins of the 1960s and 70s. You'll never notice that Mafia 3's power lines just go into dead ends, and that's sort of the point. They don't have to go somewhere, and you don't have to notice they don't. It's all about making you believe they do. And if that's done without actually creating a fully functional power grid, then that's great game design. This is the end of the video. Thanks for listening, and maybe this is your sign to jump back into Lincoln Clay's tale for revenge. And maybe one day we might actually map out Mafia 3's actual whole power grid.